Lesson 4 time Algebra 1. Today we're going to talk about using order of operations, which I'm sure you've heard of before, or that little phrase, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Do any of you have an Aunt Sally? I have never met an Aunt Sally. I have an aunt, I don't have an Aunt Margaret. Maybe Aunt Sally is your crazy aunt. I don't know. Okay, so you're going to need some homework paper today. You're going to need your handy-dandy notebook to take some notes in. You don't need a calculator today. And let's see what else you need. Your pencil. You probably need like a nose whistle. Maybe a box of tissues, because I don't know how you feel about math, but here we go. Do you remember in like 3rd grade where your teacher was trying to get you to do mental math, and she would say those things in a row, and you're trying to keep track of the answer in your head, and like she'd say 8 minus 4 divided by 2 plus 6 times 3, and then you scream out the answer, right? 8 minus 4, 4 divided by 2, 2 plus 6, 8. 8 times 2, 18. Okay, well, if you type that out on your calculator, it would not tell you 18. It probably wouldn't. And that's because your calculator is using a thing called order of operations. It has a rule that it follows as to which operations it prioritizes, which things that it will do first. Okay, and so we're going to talk about those rules about it, and so you probably heard that rule PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, to represent the layers of importance, or the layers of priority when we do our math. At some point, math people had to decide what we were going to do first if we have a string of operations to do. What's going to take priority so that we get the same answer? Okay, it's kind of like lesson 3. We got to talk the same language. When we're speaking math to each other, we have to follow the same rules. We have to play by the same rules. Imagine playing Monopoly, and everybody has their different way that they play, and the arguments, and they're going to be stabbing. Probably that'll happen there. We don't want any of that. So if I follow the correct order of operations, I'm going to do this little problem here first. I'm going to do this problem here. I'm going to get 18, and I'm going to get 2. And then the rest of it, I can do it any order that I want to. And get 8 minus 2 is 6, and 6 plus 18 is 24. Okay, so if I did it the other way, I get 4, I get 2, I get 2 plus 6 is 8. Hey, actually, that time it works the same way. That's probably a horrible example. Yeah, this teacher, say how important it is, and then show how unimportant it is. But in general, you won't get the same answer if you do it just kind of in a string of things, or if you do it in the order that they're saying. So let's start with the P. The P stands for parentheses, or we got grouping symbols. First, you do all your work within grouping symbols. These would be things like parentheses, or parentheses inside of parentheses, like brackets, or braces or brackets. We see things like this. We say we're going to do everything inside of there first, whether it's adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. We're going to do all that first because it's saying this is its own little problem that we need to solve, and that's the priority. The E in PEMDAS stands for powers and roots, or exponents. P for parentheses, or grouping symbols. E for exponents, which means when we're taking the roots and powers of things. So if it's like 3 squared plus 2, we do the 3 squared first, and then we add the 2. Or if we have something like that, we'll do each of those problems first before we do something else. So exponents, roots, and powers. You can rewrite a root as 4 to the 1/2 power. Your calculator will know what to do, but that happens first before you do other things. And then Multiplication and division are on the same layer. I think they just picked PEMDAS because it was easier to say it than PEDMAS, I suppose. But you could say PEDMAS if you wanted to, or PEDSMA, PEDSAM, I don't know, PEDMSA, whatever. Multiplication and division are basically the same thing. Dividing is multiplying by a reciprocal, by an upside down fraction. So we also will do that from left to right, just like we read, from left to right. We'll multiply and divide. And then addition and subtraction are the same thing as well. Subtraction is just adding a negative number. So here we go. We go adding and subtracting from left to right. So get those down. I'm going to erase the board here just a sec. You can hit pause and write those down. So those are the basic rules for PEMDAS. And then what they're going to do is they're going to make up these contrived problems that got all kinds of pieces in it, so that you have to follow the rules, or else you won't get the right answer. Unlike me, I can't seem to write one that you have to get the right answer. So if you look at example 1 in your book, first I think they put some stuff like this. Okay, so we do have parentheses, we do have multiplication. So what do we do first? Because we have both of those kinds of things that are right there at the beginning. Well, everything in parentheses is its own little problem, so we do that first. So first we do 10 times 3 is 30. And then we just rewrite the stuff that we don't do anything with yet. And then we got in here 5 plus 4 is 9. Now I know here we're doing addition before we do multiplication, but that's because it's inside the parentheses. And now we have multiplication. Parentheses basically means multiplying. We have another parentheses. We'll have 30 and 63. We don't add the 30 and the 7 first because we've got multiplication over here next. So we don't always do all these problems straight up from left to right. We do them in their little pieces, and eventually it kind of collapses into a smaller thing to get 93. If we did it in some other way, that's not what we would get. So again, we're agreeing on rules to follow for math, so we can get the same answer. Example 2 has some exponents. I'm going to do these pretty quickly because you can pause and go back at anything and see what was happening here. Minus 2 times 3 squared. Okay, PEMDAS. Parentheses and exponents are really more or less on the same level here. We don't really need those parentheses. They're just kind of eye candy there because we've got our exponent thing. But that would draw our attention over here first. And say, okay, let's do that. 3 squared. That's 9. I'll put the 2 out there because we didn't do anything there. And then we got a little problem here we need to take care of, and we got some exponents there as well. 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. And then we've got our own little problem here that we need to deal with. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And at this level, here we've got addition and subtraction, but we have a multiplication problem here next, so this is our next one that we need to solve. 2 times 9 is 18. And now everything is pluses and minuses. We can actually rearrange these however we want to, whatever seems most convenient, or to do some good mental math here. But if we add these two together first, we get 67, and then we're going to take away 18. I see that 18 is close to 17. That would be easy to take away, so I'll go 50 minus 1, I'll get 49. Or I could take away 20 and add back 2. That's the way I would do it in my head. So again, I'm just following the PEMDAS rules. If I do it some other way, I'm not going to get that answer. These are the rules that we've agreed to so that we can all get the same thing. Now they're also going to throw in some stuff with fractions, like really gigantic fractions. And so the second one in there has 2 times 3 minus 2, and then squared. over out of 2. Nope, glitch in the matrix. Okay, so the fractions means dividing. Okay, so you see that big bar there, and that's going to indicate for us division at some point. But we go to the parentheses first. That's our first rule that we have to follow. We have to solve this little problem in here, and then we look inside that little problem, we see multiplication that beats subtraction. So we have to do 2 times 3 first to get 6. Okay, that's our next stage. And I'm going to erase the original problem now because I've copied what I wanted to. Okay, I still have to fix the parentheses, and the next thing would be 6 minus 2 is 4. Then I've got exponents. 4 squared is 16. And then I've got division to finish it off. 16 divided by 2 is 8. If I did it a different way, I get a different answer. And then lastly, they have a problem about comparing things. Basically, they give you one expression on the left that you need to solve. They say put in the right symbol in here to say if the left side is greater than or less than or equal to what's going on over here. Now, it's pretty soon we're going to stop using this symbol for division. We're not going to use that anymore. It looks too much like percentage, and it's just confusing. It looks like a fraction, I guess, with zeros on there. And because we're going to start putting letters in on fractions, we're just going to either use the slash mark or use a fraction sign. Okay, parentheses. PEMDAS, parentheses. So here's a problem, here's a problem. Let's treat this side first here. We got 1.5 and 3. It's going to be 4.5. Okay, parentheses. We don't need parentheses anymore. Something else to do there. Okay, exponents. Exponents come next. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Division comes next. 4.5 divided by 9. That's 1/2. Trust me. Trust me. 1/2. And then lastly, we have here addition. We can just say that's 27.5. 27.5. Okay. Then we're going to see what's going on this side. Parentheses. 18 plus 8 is 26 over 2 minus 8 divided by 4. We don't need those parentheses anymore. And we have division and we have division. So we need to treat this as its own little problem and this is its own little problem. I'm going to fix this here. This is 13 minus, and then we got to do this. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 13 minus 2 is 11. And we look at those two, we can compare them. We see that that side is the big side, and this side here is the small side. Let me rewrite that right next to it so we can see that here's our final result, and put the correct symbol inside there. Okay? It might be good for you to group things. You kind of circle bits like that, and then separate things with subtraction or addition signs. Breaks things down into smaller problems. I might say, gotta do this first, and then I look at this and I say, well, that's a little problem. When I'm all done with that, there's a little problem there. Break it down into simpler pieces, and then let that thing collapse down on itself until you get to a final answer. You can compare things. That's all for that. I think PEMDAS is pretty simple, but it's very important. Again, if you doubt how this works or you don't quite understand it, you can always double check your answers. You're not sure if you did it right, you can double check your answers on your calculator. It has all the kinds of symbols that you need. It has parentheses, you can make fractions with it. It has the division sign. All that, it will do it in exactly the order that you tell it to, which it's programmed to do, the PEMDAS version. Okay, there you go. That's lesson 4. Hope that helps. See you next time.